Okay. So I tried to make this, I know sometimes when we get together as pilgrims, we start the Camino slang. So I tried to keep this as accessible to someone who has not been on the Camino. So when Linnea asked me to do this, I was, yeah, sure, that's fine. But then when I started working on the slideshow, it was just rather daunting. How do I summarize 1,000 miles? There's just so many layers to it. So I'm going to try to get through this. This is not a comprehensive slideshow. So some things I may just pass over quickly, and if you have any questions, I may answer it in a coming slide. So I tried to structure it by topic. So we're going to go through by different topics that I selected from it. Okay, so about me, this was my second Camino. My first one was...
And move this Christmas tree.
There we go. How about these wine bottles? Okay.
Yeah, pass them over here.
just let me know. Yeah. Well, we could pass them around. So my first Camino was Camino Frances in 2018. I made a documentary on this one, and it's called Camino De Santiago, A Brother's Way. And how I got into this is I watched the movie The Way, and in the first 10 minutes of seeing that movie, it's like, that's what I'm doing next summer. So I related with the theme of grief and doing a pilgrimage. So the idea of travel really appealed to me. So I delivered my brother's ashes on this one. So good thing I don't have to talk about that today, because this is my second Camino. But that's the reason I did the first one. You could see this whole walk on YouTube, and yes, available for your viewing. Okay, so how did I end up deciding to do this walk? Well, it was a great experience the first time around. Very cathartic, just wonderful. 1,000 miles was on my mind. I read the book, The Wild, so I started getting into the mindset of these journey trips. And so 1,000 miles, it just seemed like a cool number. I didn't want to miss the opportunity to do this. So I knew, because I had the time off, I'm a teacher, but I knew I just had to take that chance and walk. And then there's so much material on the Camino Frances, and if you decide to do a walk on the Linnea route or the Norte, there's not nearly as much, because before the Frances, I read a bunch of books, I watched a bunch of documentaries, I knew exactly what I was getting into. This time, there wasn't as many resources. One resource that I found was Linnea. I went to her presentation at REI on the Linnea route, and I asked her about it. She said it was one of her most wonderful Caminos. I was like, that's what I'm doing. So that's how I decided to start from Linnea. I met another local pilgrim here. I don't think he's here tonight, Gary. We went out to coffee together, and he made an Excel spreadsheet. He's a retired accountant. He made an Excel spreadsheet with each stage, how long, the incline. So it's just very thorough, and I took that on my walk. So that's how I ended up deciding, going, okay, but why did I really decide to go? All right. Well, there's three answers I wanted in my life. And I had this idea that I'm going to go and I'm going to find these answers once I get to Muxia at the end. All this confusion I'm having on these three issues, boom, in Muxia, I'm going to find my answers. So there's another pilgrim from the Frances, and he said, Jeremy, you got to end it in Muxia. The Camino, I had a great spiritual experience. I was like, okay, so I'm going to do that. We'll get back to this question later, okay? Okay, my path. Okay, so I did a conglomerate of Caminos. So I mentioned Linnea, that the first stage was Linnea to Saint Jean, approximately 450 miles. Stage 2 was the GR10, which is not a Camino. Geratin Trail. It's a trail along the Pyrenees Mountains. I walked that up to the Camino Norte. The 19 days on the Camino Norte, down to Oviedo, and then down to the Camino Primitivo, Santiago, hooray, and then Finisterre Muxia. Okay. My inspiration from Gary. All right, it's not an Excel spreadsheet, but I like doing pen and paper. So I recorded. I believe I owe him coffee now. So he wants me to brief him on the Le Puy route. So I recorded this from him, and then I also recorded where I stayed that night. If I liked a place, I put a star. If you see, I'm not sure if I put any X's. There were places that weren't that desirable, but this is where I stayed. But if anyone would like to go into, I'm going to gloss over these details. If anyone wants this information, just contact me and I could email you this list, or we could go out to coffee if you have any questions, and we could go over it in greater detail.
I have a question.
Yes.
Did you do that every day, or did you compile all this later? It's so neat.
Every day. So I carried a journal. This is part of my gear list, which I really like the feel of paper and the pen. So every day I would do it, and most days I'd write a letter home too. And by hand, I take a picture of it. So we still got that technology in there. Take a picture of it, send it by Wi-Fi. Yeah. It just let my family know I wasn't run over by a bull that day, and that sort of thing. My sister is very protective. Okay, so just a bigger picture of my gear. My goal was to carry less than 10 kilograms. So I have been influenced by the European. Their metric system is much better. So that's about 20 pounds. And then I chose boots because I wanted it to last the entire walk. So they're a little bit heavier, but I wanted something to go through the rain, the mountains, and everything, and last till the end. Okay? I had 2 pairs of clothes that I carried, so I'd wear one, keep the other in my pack, get into the hostel, the gîte or albergue, and I'd wash it, and then put on my second pair. Research. So what I recommend on doing this, one, research. John Brierley's book provides a great list. That's a very good start. And then talk to other pilgrims as well. The next thing is go test it. So after you get your equipment, go up to the Sandia Mountains. The La Luz Trail, I would say, is pretty equivalent to the first stage of the Frances over the Pyrenees. So get your gear on and go up the mountain. If you have another local pilgrim go with them. They could give you tips. My first one, one of my friends climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, and he gave me a lot of helpful tips. So we were able to go out and do gear runs on the weekend. And that's the repeat part. So do it over and over, and then until you're satisfied with your gear. But guess what? No matter how much you prepare, you're going to want to change something when you're out there. So if you don't have time to prepare, that's okay too. Just go, and you'll figure it out when you're there. Okay, so this was my gear list. I'll mention just a few highlight items. I really liked my REI Quick Dry towel. My clothing, it was all quick dry material. So I had wool, and then that lightweight hiking material, that stuff too, so it could dry out quickly. With socks, so in 2 Caminos I haven't had a blister, and I attribute it to my boots and the recommendation I received for my footwear using a cotton liner, thin cotton liner, and I use wool socks, which are moisture wicking. And then I also had Crocs in the evening, those rubber funny-looking shoes. You could always identify a pilgrim on the Camino by who's wearing Crocs out in the town. Those are great for the evenings, and they're very lightweight. Also, this was the presentation that we went to on the lady that made the documentary. She recommended a buff. So it's a sun protector. Okay. Toiletries you could get out there. Bandages, I only took a few. I had a hydration pack, which I liked, so I could just sip my water as I walk. And I realized someone told me I had to clean it. A very nice person who donated water to me said, "You need to clean your water pack," so that was a nice point. John Brierley's book is good. It's comprehensive on the Francis. Even if you decide to do these other Caminos, that book is well researched, and then it also has the spiritual aspect on the Camino, just different thoughts for each day. Highly recommend that book. I have, for entertainment, I had my iPhone. I had a Kindle for books, so that's what I upgraded this year. Instead of carrying books, I just had the Kindle, so it cut down a lot on weight for me. And then, of course, a journal, which I attempted to write every night. Important documents, Ziploc bag, and and then my travel credit card, which did not work. It was American Express. They don't accept American Express on the French countryside, and I learned that the hard way when my debit card was canceled, and I was on a budget run, holding on to just my last few euros for 3 or 4 days, and they were donating food to me at the Gîtes, and Bank of America sent my debit card ahead by 3 days. And I sent it to some guy's house named Pierre, and I showed up at his door, and he gave me my new debit card. So,
that's good.
Yeah. Okay, if you're bringing your smartphone, now I also with the Camino, I wanted to experience a break from technology, not to be completely free from it, because I still like keeping in touch. But I didn't want my phone buzzing while I was walking, so I just did Wi-Fi. However, it did make it a little inconvenient at times on booking places, making phone calls, so I had to deal with that. But on the smartphone, I recommend these 2 apps. So for France, we have the Miem Dodo app, and it will tell you places to stay, navigation, and contact information. So you don't need to have cell service, and it will show you your location on the map. So I was never lost in France because of this. I could always see where the Camino was and where I was, and it was really easy to navigate, even without cell service on my phone. That's $15 per leg. There's 2 legs you could buy, so $30 for it. Then Spain. By far the best app was the Buen Camino app, and it's for free. And so they tell you all the places you could stay, and they have a star rating system. So you could find out which are the desirable albergs and which ones aren't as desirable. The albergs are the hostels where the pilgrims stay at night. So highly recommend Buen Camino in Spain. There's more apps out there. But those what I recommend. Okay, so just a brief overview of the Le Puy to Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port Camino that I did. Again, it was about 450 miles, I believe, approximately. It is on the GR65 trail in France. So in France, the trails are on the GR system. And one of my French friends out there was telling me that the GR trails have a standard where I think it's about 75% of the trail cannot be, it's on a trail, so it's on dirt, so you're not walking on pavement, which is a very nice thing on the Le Puy route. I had no problems with my knees or my feet walking there on the trail. Okay, it took me 29 days to walk. Initially, it was more up and down, and then it leveled out as you go. So being a fresh pilgrim, it's a little bit of a shock on that first week or so when you're going up and down. The gîtes, half the pilgrims, when we were in the cathedral before we left, half the pilgrims were French. And a lot of the French are on vacation for a week or two, and they book everything ahead of time. So in France, on the Le Puy route, you want to book ahead. So I don't speak French, and so how I did it is I would send an email in English through the app, and I had a 50% success rate on replies. If I met another French pilgrim that spoke English, they would make a phone call for me and book me for the night. I never had a problem not getting a place. And the French love to speak French. But if you don't know any French, you'll still be able to get by. There will always be someone out to help you. But I wish I knew more French in social settings, like at a bar. They're going to pay more attention to the French customers because they speak their languages, and I didn't know the common pleasantries. So that would have been nice to know. But again, you could still do it if you don't know any English. I survived and had a good time. Last thing about this, French food is amazing. Oh, so good. Okay, that'll be another slide just dedicated to that coming up. Okay, so once I finished the Le Puy to Saint-Jean, I didn't plan this ahead of time, but I was talking to other pilgrims on the trail. I was like, how do I join up the Le Puy route to the Norte route? And then I started to hear about the GR10. What's the GR10? What's the GR10? So the GR10 is a Pyrenees trail that goes from the Atlantic to the Mediterranean Sea along the Pyrenees Mountains. And like the Le Puy route, the GR65, it is well marked and easy to navigate. So every 100 yards or so, you're going to have a marking on showing you the red and white that you're on the right path, or to take a right turn, a left turn, or an X to not to go here. So it's really easy to read. And I had an app too that showed me my exact location. So there was a few times where I got lost on here. So I pulled out my Maps.me app, and I could see a little dotted line and where I was, and then try to walk through the horses and the sheep and up a hill and get back on the trail. So I was on this for 5 days. At this point, I was walking for 29 days by the time I got to this, and I was doing about 30-kilometer days. But when I got to GR10, I had to cut it down to 20 because the inclines, you go up, 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 then down, 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 down. It was way more challenging. And have you seen those movies where someone is just out in the wild in nature and you just hear like cowbells and the sound of animals and stuff? It was very isolated out here, and that's what it was like. And what I really enjoyed about this, the horses would be right next to you. You would walk through a group of horses, or there would be a herd of sheep passing by you, and I wouldn't see anyone around for several kilometers. And I got to this point of exhaustion on the trail, and then when you hit a mountain peak, it was just so rewarding to see these sweeping mountaintop views. So I annoyed a few pilgrims by how much I talked about this when I was in Spain, and I have a lot of photos on this, but we'll pass on that for now since it's not a Camino. Another cool thing about this, they have gîtes. So if you want to, you don't have to camp here. So every night it's like the Camino. It's planned out so you could stay in a gîte, a hostel, for 10 or 15 euro, so $15 and $20, and you'll have no problem with lodging. Okay, so after when I got up to the northern border of France and Spain, I started the Camino Norte, which is the north coast of Spain. It is less populated than the Camino Francis. It has great ocean views, so you're passing through countryside, and you go away from the ocean, and then the trail will veer towards the ocean. It's initially more up and down, and then levels out as well. And then the downside of this is there's more walking on paved roads. So it could get a little bit harder on the feet, and sometimes you're next to cars too, so you just have to keep an eye out while hiking. I stayed in albergues, and it's not necessary to book ahead most of the time. The days where you have to book ahead, you'll learn from the other pilgrims what the crunch cities are going to be. So you'll learn if an albergue ahead is closed, or if it's a town that's popular that doesn't have too many albergues, then you'll learn how to book ahead. And we'd use a Buen Camino app and then just make a phone call and book. Along the Norte, you're going to get to a decision point, and the decision is to continue along the Norte to Santiago on the northern coast, or turn inland onto the Camino Primitivo and head into Santiago. So I chose to, after 19 days on the Norte, I decided to walk on the Primitivo. Gary, that I met with here, he had a lot of great things to say about the Primitivo. When I was out there, I wanted to get back into the mountains again. So initially the Primitivo is more up and down. It's called the Primitivo not because it's unimproved and there's no albergues, but it's like Primero the First. It was the first Camino, I think, in the 9th century. So this is where all the Caminos started.
What time of the year did you go?
I went in May, June, and July. Yeah, so when I was on the Primitivo, it was late June, early July. Yeah. This is a shorter Camino, so if you have 2 weeks off and you just want to do a complete Camino that's shorter, this is only 2 weeks. So we met a lot of pilgrims who are doing the Primitivo solely, so it's great for that. Less roads compared to the Camino Norte, so this was another deciding factor as well. And then, of course, when you're getting the excitement for Santiago starts to build up on the Primitivo. Okay, let's talk about weather. So I have 3 pictures here, hot, cold and rainy, and temperate. Most of the time, along all these Caminos and the Giro 10, it was temperate. It was perfect weather, 70 to 75 degrees, overcast, no rain. I had a handful of days where it was rainy and I put a poncho on. Only a handful of days where I got completely soaked and my feet got soaked and my clothes got soaked. That didn't happen too much. Okay, and the Norte and the Primitivo were both temperate. So again, those were June, July, very comfortable weather. Le Puy, in the beginning, the week before I got there, it was snowing. And I met a Dutch lady out there that got caught in a thunderstorm, and she curled up in a ball and she was crying on the trail in a thunderstorm. So at first, in early May, that weather, you can get rain and you can get snow. I put all my layers on. I had a long sleeve, a short sleeve, a lightweight hiking jacket, long sleeve, and then my socks. And then I have my buff on my head, and then my hood up, and my hands inside my jacket sleeves with snot dripping out, probably for about the first hour of the day. Then it warmed up and it got better. Okay, so let's talk about a typical day. This was, in broad picture for me, this was my typical day. I wake up at 6:30 a.m. I didn't use an alarm because other pilgrims were rustling up their gear, getting ready to go. Eat breakfast at 7 a.m. in the albergue or a town, so usually just coffee and bread, especially in France. Lunch about midday. In France, usually I packed my lunch since there was less bars along the way, or drop by in a nearby town. Have another break, and then finish the walking part of the day about 3 or 4 p.m. And my goal was to average 25 kilometers a day. So sometimes I'd do more, sometimes I'd do less, but for me, 25 felt like I earned it, and it didn't feel like I wasn't in pain at the end of the day. Usually that was 30 kilometers plus where you'd feel that. So I found a good spot that worked for me where I was able to enjoy it and also feel exerted. Okay, then so 3 or 4 p.m., checking out the albergue, shower and wash clothes. It's always amazing to take a shower after hiking. The simple pleasures like food, shower is just heightened so much. And then wash clothes by hand. So I'd wash my clothes out by hand, wring them out, and then hang them on the clothesline. If it was raining, well, I was carrying wet clothes the next day. But that was just my choice because I wanted to carry less gear. Okay, and then in the afternoon, meet other pilgrims for snacks and beer. I had this big idea before I left. I'm going to do a bunch of reading and writing. That did not happen. I was too tired to read. And then it was just very social. So it was, you get to know these other pilgrims and you go out and you just have a good time. And again, that having snacks at the end of the walk was just amazing. Food was so good. Yeah. And then dinner at 8 p.m. Okay, I feel very American in Europe when it comes to food because I want to eat right now and I want to eat whatever I want. In Europe, you have to wait till the kitchen opens and when the cook feels like it. So we would have to wait around and usually just have a raging appetite, and then at 8 p.m. they open the kitchens and then we'd have dinner. And then after dinner, if I was to write a letter, I had about 30 minutes of mental clarity so I try to jam out a letter real quick, and too often I'd say, I'm sorry this is too short, but I just got to go to bed. And sweet, again with simple pleasures. Sleep is so sweet. It just feels good to get in that bed, some Spanish guys snoring next to you, but if you get those earplugs in and just conk out for the night. All right, so that was my typical day. Okay, let's talk about food. Oh, French food is amazing. Okay, so pictured here was one of my best meals. This was in Amont, Aubrac, at the beginning of the Le Puy Camino. This gentleman here, this was a mashed potato cheese mixture. So I was sitting, these are a couple Parisians that I got to sit with, and they spoke English, and they were telling me that this special mixture, it took them years and years to develop the right consistency. So these mashed potatoes have like a dough-like consistency. And then they come out, he makes a show out of it, he's bringing it up like this. And this is, of course, after you had your appetizers and soup, you're drinking wine, and you're talking to everyone at the table. Then they come out, they give you a taste, and then they bring out some ranch fresh meat, some beef you could have with then you get a second serving of these mashed potatoes and cheese. Just, oh, so good. And red wine, of course. The wine is always flowing. Okay, and then here's another example of a French meal that I had. So this was towards the beginning. We had, and this was at a gîte. So I spent 15 or 20 euros, so $20 to $25 to stay at this place. And the hostess, she made us cold cut meats, pickles, bread, salad. Then the main course came out, sausage and mashed potatoes. And then we had a pastry after that, and then cheese with an espresso. And next to me, the French guy next to me, he did speak some English. He kept pouring my wine, so I had a little bit too much to drink that night. And I made the mistake here that I didn't know, everyone was speaking French. I didn't know what was going on. And I was really hungry, so with the cold cut meats, the pickles and the bread and the salad, I was wolfing it down, and they're so nice about their food. They eat more, and it's like, sure. And then the sausage and mashed potatoes came out. Okay, this is a typical lunch I had in France. So one adjustment factor I had from the Camino Frances was the bars were spread out farther, so you had to plan farther ahead. So I'd carry a baguette, some cold cut meats, some cheese, and then something to drink other than my hydration pack, and then stop and take a break, and then have lunch and keep moving. Okay, so now we get to Spain. Pinchos, they were a lifesaver. So again, in Europe, the kitchen doesn't open till 8 p.m., and I would live off pinchos to make it till the kitchen opened up. So pincho is just like an appetizer or a snack. You walk into these bars, and it is just a pilgrim's dream. It is just laid out all over the bar, and you could just pick and choose, and it's a great way to hold you over. Okay, another highlight food. This is sidra in the region of Asturias on the Camino Norte. This is a hard alcoholic cider, and this is a traditional way to pour it. My form is very poor here. The waiters out in Spain, they hold it. They look like those. What do you call those bowl guys? They have great form. So they hold the wine over their head like this. They don't look at the cup, and then they pour it into the cup. And as pilgrims, yes. Mm-hmm. And it's very impressive. They might miss a few drops, and when I tried it, I had a lot more respect for them because I couldn't get my arm straight, and I couldn't get the cup down, and I was looking at it while doing it. So I definitely had to practice. And we had one dinner as pilgrims together where our server, he came out, he said, "¿Quieres más?" And then he would just say, "Sí." And so, "Do you want more?" "Yes." And then he would walk off and then come back with another bottle. We weren't even able to respond yes or no, so we ended up having 4 bottles that night. Okay, so food equals happy pilgrims. So this is a pulpo, octopus. The highlight restaurant, I believe on the Frances, is Ezekiel. And they make the best pulpo. They have a way of really making the meat tender. Yeah. Okay, so this was in Spain. This is some pilgrims I was walking with. We were sharing a meal. So we would sit down. We'd all order different appetizer dishes and just pick and choose off each other's plates. And okay, this was my worst meal, and it was still delicious. So this day, I walked 37 kilometers. It was somewhere in France. I got into, I didn't plan it, but I got into some small town on a Sunday, and everything was closed. The gîtes were booked, so I'm running around trying to see if anyone could speak English. I found someone who knew someone who knew someone who had a gîte, and she had a room open for me. And so all the restaurants were closed. I only had a can of sardines in my pack. She showed me there was some tea and some noodles, so I boiled it, put the sardines in, and that was my dinner, and it still tasted so good.
Your pack was light.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I see some fresh lemon in there.
Yeah, that was part of the sardine pack. Okay, day 37 was my longest hiking day. It was in Spain, Guitarria to Marquina, Zemin, Spain, I think you pronounce it. It was 42 kilometers by accident. I was walking with Jordan. She's from Southern California, and it was the beginning of the Norte. And I said, "Do you want to double up stages? Because 2 stages were really short." It's like, "Let's just go for it." And she's like, "How long is it?" And my mental math was off. I thought it was 32 kilometers. It ended up being 42. She was a really good sport about it. We got into the town at 9 p.m., completely exhausted. We found a restaurant that was open at 10 p.m. So after you do that washing clothes routine, showering, then we found a restaurant that was open at 10 p.m. and just went back to the albergue and conked out. I didn't care about walking that long towards the end of my Camino. So when I first began, I was very motivated about challenging myself, pushing it. But then towards the end, it's just like, yeah, you know, I want to enjoy it more, and I took it easier. Yeah. Okay, so not every day was perfect. So I was sick one day in Figeac, France. So the night before, this was when my debit card was gone. So I only had one credit card that worked, and not all the Jeets took credit cards. So it was a trailer park, and it said on the app that they had credit card service. So I said, I'm going to that. So I get into this remote trailer park. It was just one rough-looking guy chain smoking. It's like, well, I only have a credit card. And I get there, he's like, so I wait around, no one's there, it's raining, it seems weird there. I don't see any other pilgrims. And so then this guy shows up, and he doesn't speak English, rough-looking guy. And then, but I still decide to stay there, and I made sure to lock my door that night in my trailer, and my dinner was a bag of chips. So I just had a raging appetite, and I just ate that bag of chips. Didn't feel that great. The next day, I ate breakfast at a Jeet down the Camino, and still didn't feel good. And I was walking really slow, and then I ended up losing my cookies probably about halfway through the walk. But as they say, the Camino provides, there was a nurse from Australia and her husband behind me. She said, "Oh, Dia," and she gave me a Kleenex. I cleaned up my barf, and she said, "If we get in the next town and we don't hear you, you don't make it, we'll call someone to come and get you." So I said, "Okay, thank you." And I felt good after vomiting. I felt better, I should say. And so when I got to Figeac, France, I decided to get a hotel to rest up, which was the right decision to recover. I didn't have the energy to go to our restaurant, so I went to a grocery store. The French don't give you plastic or paper bags. I found this out at the end of the checkout line. So I had my jacket, and I was walking out of the supermarket with all my food. Then I went into my hotel room, and just laid on the bed, and I rested after having a nice shower, and just ate my food and then slept. Next day, didn't feel good. I had a headache, so I stayed. I took a sick day. Next day after that, I was fine, and it was back on the road. Okay, day 24, I had minor heat sickness. I didn't write home about this. No, yeah. So this was a 33-kilometer day. This was at the beginning where I was motivated to knock out those KMs. I was walking fast. The last 5 kilometers, I ran out of water, but I still kept pushing myself. I was feeling fine, but when I got back, when I got to the Jeet, I took a shower, and I was shivering, and then I laid in the bed and under the covers, and I was still shivering, and I just had a really bad headache. So I was still able to walk the next day, but that was just a learning experience for me. Don't push it like that in the heat, and always stay hydrated. Okay, day 43. I'm not trying to scare people off from doing the Camino. So day 43, my foot got a serious cramp. I didn't know this because again I was pushing it until I was looking for a beach town to stay in, a small beach town, and I came across Noha, so I wasn't planning. I was like, I want to stay at a beach town. I want to get a nice hotel with a view. And by the way, the hotels there are like $50 a night. So I had a balcony that overlooked the beach, and it was right outside my door. But when I sat down and I started massaging my feet, I took off my sock and like, oh, that looks weird. And I had a big old bump on it. So I went to the pharmacia. In my broken Spanish, I explained to the pharmacist, and she was very helpful. And she gave me cream. And so I would apply that. So this was the Norte. And I think part of it was because I was doing longer kilometers, and then the paved roads, too, were hard on my feet. So after that, I wasn't doing 30 plus days. And then I used foot cream, and then I tried to massage 2 or 3 times a day. And I still had that knots till the end, but it was manageable. Okay, so speaking of being sick and weary and tired, one of my favorite things and why I chose to do the Camino again rather than the Pacific Crest Trail or the AT was there's a sense of pilgrimage, and for me, a lot of it is the cathedrals, the beautiful architecture, the sense of faith that you get walking into one of these. And my favorite thing was being tired and weary in the countryside and coming into a little chapel and no one was around. And it has all these beautiful artifacts inside, stoneworks. And sometimes when you go into them in the day, the lights would just be brilliant through the windows and you'd be there alone. And of course, on the Camino, you're in touch with all those really meaningful things with your life, and it's just a really awe-inspiring moment. So they're a good place to rest, cool down, and pray. Okay. This part is going to be a little bit harder. This is Regina from southern Germany, so I'm going to talk about some Camino people. I met her at the beginning of my walk on Mother's Day, and it was Mother's Day. I wanted to write a letter to my mom, but I was having writer's block. I couldn't find the words. I couldn't. So I went out in the town to look around, see if there's anything I could write about. And so then I sat down in a bar with a blank page and paper, and this German lady came over to me, very happy, joyful, and started talking to me. And she's been walking for 3 years in different segments. Her son died when he was 22. About 3 to 5 years before, suddenly. And so, and then she was telling me here before we took this picture that she was talking to her son on the walk, and he was telling her, "You have to let me go." And then it was raining, windy, and cold, and she said that. It's just like life. You have to accept this weather too. And so they say the Camino provides. I was able to write my mom, who lost a son, about this on Mother's Day. So it was just really special. And I only met her once, and I was just so moved by her story, her openness, her joy, how much she welcomed me. It was really beautiful. Okay, this is Matt from San Francisco. When I was in France, again, I got the sense of how much I'm an American. When I heard an American accent, I was going through 2 or 3 days where I wouldn't have a complete conversation with anyone. So I heard Matt. I heard that sweet American accent, and then we were able to I saw him off and on, but it was great to see someone from the States and to have a full-on conversation. This was Andrea from the Netherlands. So when I finished the Le Puy route, this was the rainiest day we had, but the rain didn't matter because we had such a great conversation. We kicked it off so well. We were completely soaked. A car drove by and splashed me, and I was soaked, and we were sitting in a coffee shop shivering. But we just had a great conversation the whole time. She really opened up from her personal story, and what you see on the Camino is a lot of people is the catalyst for creativity. So her project was called Camino Stones. It's a website, caminostones.com. And I had a hippie on my credential document, when he stamped it, he was listening to Pink Floyd was playing in his cafe. He had a tie-dye shirt and a cut-off denim shorts. And then he wrote on my credential document, "Everything happens for a reason." And the way he wrote it and said it to me, I was like, yes, this guy knows what's going on. This what happened with Andrea. So that day, she was carrying an airplane stone to drop off in St. John. We started walking together. We didn't even know each other. She found out my background is in aviation. So again, everything happens for a reason on the Camino. So she's like, "This is the day I was supposed to show up, and you're an aircraft mechanic. So why don't you take this stone and you carry it?" So I carried it to Finisterre, and I left it there. And on her web page, you could go, and she had a bag full of these small stones, and you could go and you could see where they have been from the Camino. So people could travel with it to a different part of the world, geotag its location, and you could see these stones travel throughout the world. Yeah. She's very passionate about this project. It's great. Okay, so so when I started this Camino, I had the mindset, I'm going to solve those 3 issues in my life. I'm going to do it alone, and I'm going to find solitude, silence. I'm going to find peace, and all my answers are going to come to me. Well, I got pretty tired of my own thoughts and feelings. So in Spain, I came across some other long-distance walkers, and we became a Camino family. So every night, we would meet up for dinner, and we would stay at we had booked the same gîtes together, and then we'd just have a grand old time joking and laughing over a meal. So this was Judith from Amsterdam. She walked all the way from Amsterdam. Yeah, so what is that? I think over 2,000 miles or so. Jean-Pierre from France, he was also a long-distance walker. He started, I believe, from Velay. And then Philippe from France. I met him on the GR10 trail, and then we just started seeing each other more and more, and we became friends. Okay, so my walking friend was Judith from Amsterdam. So once I was into Spain, we started walking together. So everything that was on my mind in France, when I got into Spain, Judith is the type of friend you may have where when you talk to them, they only ask you questions that are like meaningful and pull out meaningful things. So everything that was on my mind in France, I heard myself say to her in Spain. So we would have great conversation, and then it was a great balance of talking about meaningful things and then just also humor too. There was just once on that stage of the Camino, just talking to other pilgrims, there's like a certain like giddiness and laughter, and we could just crack up about anything. So up here on the left, she took my phone and took a picture of herself like that. So now I get to put it in a slideshow and present it to everyone. Okay, so in summary, some of my favorite towns real quick. Le Puy. Le Puy is a great starting point. Beautiful cathedral on a volcanic mountain. There's a ceremony when you begin, so it feels very official. A priest will bless all the pilgrims leaving. And here we took a prayer card. So the pilgrims who left the day before, you would grab that prayer card, and then you would carry it and you would pray for that person. So again, I had a mother who wanted me to pray for her son who had cancer. Gosh. And then, so you go through that ceremony, and then you put your prayer card in. So the next day, your prayer card gets picked up by the next wave of pilgrims. Very special. After the priest does the ceremony, then they have these huge doors that open up. So this cathedral is on top of a mountain, and then you're in this black tunnel, and then you go out into the light down this hill, and it's just a great start to the Camino. Okay, my next favorite was Conques, France. This town just does not look like it belongs to this earth. In fact, the animator for Beauty and the Beast got his inspiration for Beauty's house from this village. It's very quaint stone buildings, medieval type architecture with this huge cathedral in the middle. I highly recommend. If you walk, stay a night here. It's just a really special place. Of course, Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port, for a lot of us, this is a very special and meaningful town because it's where we started our Caminos. For me, it was great to come back and see where I started the year before. Okay, Irún, Spain. So this was the start of the Camino Norte, a lot of hills, but a great view. And also, whenever you're starting a new Camino, there's excitement with the new change on the Camino. Guitarria, Spain. So this is a small, I love these little beach towns that were small and not too populated. And when I was walking here, I got lost. I took the wrong turn somewhere, and I ended up next to this boardwalk following the beach. And as I was walking, a nice Spanish lady approached me, and she started talking. I speak a little bit, and I told her about my brother the year before, and then she told me about this book written by a Spanish guy, and so I ended up buying that book in Santiago. And she said she has a sentence or two mentioned of her in it. I'm not sure who it was, but I read the book. Very good book. The Spanish title is El Gran Caminante. And I think in English it loses some of its meaning. It just says the great westward walk. Okay, Santillana del Mar, northern Spain. This, again, a medieval town, beautiful stonework. It was a wonderful town, but I did make one mistake in this town. There was a torture museum. It was artifacts from the Spanish Inquisition that they used to brutally kill people. And I thought, oh, well, I would like to learn about history. So I walked in, and it was a big mistake. So when you're on the Camino, you become more sensitive and more compassionate. And I could not get past the first room in that torture museum. So I forget the ticket price. I'm out of here. It was very disturbing. I was like, I don't need to learn that much history right now. My favorite beach was in Poo, Spain. Yes, there is a town called Poo. You've been there? Yes. Yeah. I slept in Poo. We stepped in Poo. Yeah. So. Next to the Albuquerque, there's a top 25 National Geographic beach. And so we all checked it out, Googled it, and then we headed over there. And you could swim in this beach. So if you walk 100 or 200 meters out, you could swim. It has this cove in there with calm water and just have a nice, refreshing swim. That beach is Lanes Playa de Poo. Okay, and then, of course, Santiago. It's all leading up. We're all talking about Santiago and getting there, and it's just a very festive, celebratory place to enjoy the end of your walk. All right, so that's my Camino family there, us in front of the cathedral. We were only 10 kilometers away, and we left at 5 in the morning, and so we were there right at sunrise when it was coming up on the cathedral. Okay. And so now I'm coming towards the end of this, and of course this was Finisterre Muxia. So actually with Santiago, my friend Philippe, he was just so expressive and everything was so great about the Camino. But actually for me, Santiago this time was a little bit of a downer. I just found the noise, the activity to be too loud. Everyone was celebrating. I didn't feel like celebrating. I just felt like being alone. But I ended up going to Finisterre and Muxia, and for me, I really liked ending in these towns because it's calm, it's quiet, it's a sense of like what the whole Camino was like. You end up at the ocean, so there's just that idea that you can't go any farther. So a great way to end the Camino. There's 0 kilometer markers at each. This is the Finisterre 0 kilometer marker. And you can, if you remember that Camino stone, so this is where I put the Camino stone at that marker. And then that was Judith in the background there. So she also felt that same way about Santiago. I know it differs for everyone on their feelings with Santiago. She also felt that way, but when she got to the 0 kilometer marker coming from Amsterdam, she was finally able to just cry. And then the you can't see it here, but the sun rays coming through the clouds in the morning. We went first thing. It was 3 kilometers from the town, so that was the last 3 kilometers of her walk from Amsterdam. And we came down this hill, and the sun was just coming through the clouds, and it's just so quiet and calm. Great way to end. Okay, this was my ending point, Muxia. All right, so there's 3 questions I had on my mind. Did I find the answers? I wanted clarity. I wanted to make 3 decisions in my life. Well, I didn't. I didn't come to any sort of decision about those 3 things that I want to change in my life. But I think, what did I learn from it? It's hard to summarize, but it has something to do with the whole experience. I became, in Muxia, I did have my moment. It's not what I wanted. I came out to the ocean, and I sat in front of the waves, and the waves were just really rough and turbulent. There's that big sculpture of that crack in it. So it's like a wreck, because it was from a shipwreck. And it's like, oh, this is what my Camino was about. It was about finding calm in the turbulence of my own mind, and being able to open up, talk about it, being able to just laugh about things, even with these issues outstanding. So, but there's better words to summarize the Camino. So this is out of the book El Gran Caminante. And then you may be familiar with this poem. I came across it. I read this book when I returned, and it's like, this is it. This is what it was about for me. And this poet put it so much better than I did. The author is unknown. When I was on the Francis towards, I think, Nas Benales, I saw graffiti on the wall in a poem. It was in Spanish and in German, and I didn't know the translation until I got home and Googled it. And so here's the English translation of this poem, and I'll go ahead and leave with this. So, dust, mud, sun, and rain make the way to Santiago for thousands of pilgrims. For more than 1,000 years, pilgrim, who is calling you? What hidden force attracts you? Not the field of stars, nor the great cathedrals. It is not noble Navarre, nor the Rioja wine, nor the Galician shellfish, nor the Castilian plains. Pilgrim, who is calling you? What hidden force attracts you? Not people of the way, nor their rural customs. It is the history and the culture. It is not the cock of Calzada, nor the palace of Gaudi, nor the castle of Ponferrada. I see it all as I pass by, and it is a joy to see. But the voice that calls me, I feel it much more deeply. The force that pushes me, the force that attracts me, I cannot explain it. Only the one above can say. The last line is, I cannot explain it. Only the one above can say. Yeah. So... Thank you for having me, and it was great for me to review my walk as well, and to be able to share it with you. So thank you, Linnea, for all your hard work as always.
Yeah.
All right, I'm happy to do that. Any questions right now? Yes.
Just from, I was considering last year doing the Lapuit conch. What was that? C-O-N?
Conch, yes.
So that's like a couple weeks or
Is it 2 weeks?
Is it
I could look it up in.
challenging?
At first, it is. Yeah.
Worse than going up El Sombrero?
If you could do that, you could do it. So, like I said, if you could do the La Luz Trail,
Yeah.
you could definitely.
Well, I've done the Pinot.
Yeah. I have elevation breakdowns of each stage.
Okay.
If you give me your email address, I could send those to you.
Okay.
And then you could plan accordingly. I know some people like to start out with maybe less 10 to 20 kilometers a day just to get their walking legs used to it. So, yeah. Yes.
What's your next Camino?
Oh, I don't have plans for another Camino. The GR10 definitely appealed to me, so that's been on my mind. But as of now, I don't know. Trying to.
Which is the 10 from where to where?
The 10 it transverses the Pyrenees Mountains on the French side from the Atlantic Ocean to the Mediterranean.
Thank you for sharing your
Yeah.
story. You know, it's so emotional and it's so deep for every one of us.
Yes,
you know.
yeah. I really struggled with doing this because it wasn't, I felt I didn't have a clean story because I didn't work out the issues in my life. So, because my first Camino, it was more like a beginning, middle, and an end. And it was about someone else. It was about my brother. So it was a little bit easier. So I felt a bit self-conscious today, or before this, and I had writer's block probably up until Monday. And then I talked to Judith on the phone from Amsterdam, and we were joking again. And she's just like, we would talk about, she knew I was doing this speech, so we would talk about what it means to have a transformative experience. And we just started laughing. It's like, we were just trying so hard to explain something deep. And she said, just go out there and enjoy it, have fun. So,
And then things change too as time passes.
yeah.
You know, your experience and your thoughts on it.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. One thing I wanted to say on this one, at the reason I was going to end it on this picture was because I still feel like this Camino is going for me on an inward way. Yeah.
And now my kids are very interested
Yes.
in doing.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Encourage them. It's great. I didn't meet anyone like I made a bad decision walking the Camino. I've had people tell me that I didn't think it was that transformative, but they're still glad they did it. Okay. Thank you.
You shared so much of yourself.
Oh, thank you.
It's really brave for you to
Thank you.
come out and do this. I mean, really. So I thought you were going to be good, but I didn't think you were going to be this good.
Thank you, Linnea.
Okay.
Okay. Because I was having writer's block before this, and I had writer's block probably up until Monday, but I was having writer's block. I couldn't find the words. I couldn't. So I went out.